Hello, this is Julie. Today I want to show you how to use some tools in Make the Cut for designing fill patterns for shapes and for text. We have several different styles of fills that we can do. I filled this ordinary cutting file over here with an island fill rotated to make a diamond island fill, and I have about 6 different fill patterns that I've added to my shapes in the basic shapes in the software so that I can use them anytime, and I'd like to show you how you can do the same. When you add lines to a design or to text, you can use your pen, your engraving tool, or your embossing tool in your cutter to draw or engrave or emboss lines to fill your shape. The design on the left would be cut out of several different colors of paper, whereas the design on the right, I go to my outline so you can see the specific lines, the inside lines as well as the outside line can be created with your pens or with your other tools. If you want to cut around them, you can do that if you have your tools aligned with your blade by way of calibrating them so that they work together. So if these lines are drawn on your media, you can add the outline to calibrated tools and cut around your drawn lines or engraved lines depending on the media that you're using. So first I'd like to show you some of the different kinds of patterns that we can make for this purpose. This is a line fill. It's a simple line multiplied, duplicated many times at 0.02 inches distance apart to create just back and forth lines with your pens or embossing or engraving tools. This one I've done the same thing, only rotated it to be vertical to create vertical lines. As some designs you may want to use horizontal and others you may want to use vertical lines. This one is the same idea, but the line fill is rotated diagonally to give you diagonal lines. And again, if you want diagonal lines in your design with pens, then you might use this filled pattern. Now if you combine 2 diagonal fills, you can get this cross-hatching fill. Kind of has an effect of a chevron, tiny chevron, when you use this with your pens or engraving tool, depending on the thickness of your pen. Now this one is an island fill, meaning that the lines start real small and then wrap around all the way around until the shape is filled. Now you can use an island fill on individual shapes, or you can apply this island filled design to your shapes. This is the same one, an island fill on a regular square. So you see these lines are horizontal and vertical. You'd probably want to center your design on the center of this in order to get a balanced symmetrical effect of this fill. This one is the same fill, just rotated, an island fill. So what I'm going to do is apply these different fills to this design to show you the different effects and how to do that. The first thing that I did was find a design that I wanted to work with. Now this cross is a design from the Make the Cut gallery. I just went to the gallery, which looks like this tic-tac-toe board at the top of the screen, and I typed in the search window cross. Then I did descending and clicked on search, and then on page, there's 86 crosses. On page 3 I found this particular cross, and I just downloaded it by clicking on download underneath the design. Now this technique that I'm showing you will work with most any design. You'll see that the colored portions of this design are the parts that are going to fill with the engraving or pen drawing. The parts that are white will not be filled. After I did add some text to the shape that I was using, and then I selected the text and the cross, and vertically align them just to get balance. So once I selected them, I also joined them, so once I had them the way I wanted them to be, and that made them all one piece, and that's important for the technique we're going to use here. So whatever design you want to use, whatever text you want to use, you need to get it ready by lining it all up. The next step is to add a shadow layer of about the same distance as your lines are going to be. Now the fills that I created over here are at 0.02 inches, and that works with an engraving tool and a fine pen, but if you're using a very fine pen, you might want to change that sizing to 0.01, but whatever size your fill is, that's the size of the outline you want to make, and the purpose for that is to create a close line around your design that you're engraving, so that I'm going to move away the cut line here. If you have just the drawn lines or engraved lines, sometimes you can't see a real smooth outline of the original shape, so by making a close shadow of your original file, you'll have drawn lines around the design to close it out. So that's what I would do with this. So going back to showing you the fills, we're going to take this original design here and we're going to add a shadow layer, and to do that we'll just click on the fourth icon from the right, shadow layer, and I'll give it the width. If I'm using 2/100ths of an inch in my engraving or embossing, I'm going to use 2/100ths of an inch in my shadow width, and just click accept. Once I have that, if I need to create cutting lines around my design, and I think I'll change the color of that, I'll send the layer to the top by clicking on the smaller, the two green plus icons in the right corner, and I'll just maybe change that to a darker purple or plum, and move that layer to the bottom so it's not in the way. Again, this will be the original shape plus the outline that I want to draw around it. Now if I want to create the cut lines, I'm going to select that line I just got, and I'm going to shadow it again, and here you can use any width that you like for your cutting lines. If you want thicker lines around your drawn designs, you can change that. Maybe I want it at 5/100ths of an inch to give me a bigger bleed area. I can click on accept, and now I have the cutting lines for my project. Now, while I'm doing the engraving, I really need to hide that. I'll send it to its own layer and move it to the bottom. Right click and select move to the bottom, and I'm just going to hide that layer, and I'll use that layer only when I'm ready to cut after I've finished the entire project. These layers are important to keep on separate layers because we want to apply the engraving fills only to the original design. Then when we go to draw or engrave or emboss, we will use both the original and the first shadow we made for the lines. But for right now, we want to just get the original design, no matter what whether it's shape or text, and we want to use it with our fill. Now I'm going to show you how to create these fills. I'll open a new page here, back out a little bit so you can see the process. I'm just going to grab a square from all categories. I'll just type in SQ and double click on that square to add it to my virtual mat. Now I want to make this square as wide as I need it for my design, and my design is about 3.5 inches tall, so I'm going to make my engraving fill about 4 inches. So that's kind of the size that I'm aiming for. When I'm creating a line fill, I'm going to take off that lock and make the height of this box 0.02 if I'm doing 2/100ths of an inch fill, and then press enter on the height, and that gives me my initial line. Notice that it's still 4 inches wide like my original would be, but now I'm going to duplicate this line many times so that I can use it as a fill. So I'll go to edit, duplicate, and I've just added 100 rows to kind of give me that same height as the original square over here, and I put the spacing at 2/100ths of an inch. Now if you want your lines closer because you're using a very fine engraver or you're using a very fine pen, you can change that to 0.01, and then you might have to add some more, and you can click up on the number of rows. You can add maybe 150 and you'll get more fills there, but I'm going to leave mine at 100. The more that you put in here, the more time it will take to render your shape, the more time it'll take to engrave or draw, the more time it'll take even to process within the software. 02 is a good happy medium for me. So I'll click on apply, and then with all that selected, I'm going to join those together so they're all as one piece. Now if we zoom in really close on this design, you'll see that there are lines, and if I click on fill outline and just go to outline, you'll see that we have 4 inches square of, approximately 4 inches square of horizontal lines, and that's what I wanted. So I'll zoom out a little bit. So that's how I get horizontal lines. If I want vertical lines with this selected, I'll just hold the Control and Shift key and click and rotate using the fourth icon from the left on the bottom and drag it off, and now I have vertical lines. Now I can add these fills to my shapes library so that next time I need a line fill, whether horizontal or vertical, or even if I click again on this till I get the rotation handles and I hold a control key, I can drag this around to give myself diagonal lines. And I'll just drag that off. Now, using that original line fill, I have 3 different types of fills for my design: horizontal, vertical, and diagonal. So to add these, I'll show you to add them for future use. I'm going to click on my horizontal fill, line fill, go to File, Export, and Selection to Basic Shapes. And I like to mark each of my fills with E and G for engraving, and I'll call it line horizontal, just so that I have a way of remembering. I'll add my initials so I know I made that, and I can add it to my basic shapes. Now if I go to click on basic shapes and I select your shapes, you'll see that if I type in ENG, you will see all of my different engraving fills, and here is the engraving fill horizontal that I just added. To use it, I double click and it appears on my virtual mat, and you'll see that it's exactly the same as what I just saved. So if I need to grab this again next time, I can just go to my basic shapes to get the engraving fill design that I want, horizontal, vertical, or diagonal. Now if I would like to do a cross hatching, I can select both the horizontal and vertical and type S to stack, and I end up with, and if I join them, we'll zoom in on this and you can see that I have now little squares. It's cross hatching, but it looks more cross hatched if I rotate it. So I can take the same design, Control Shift and click and drag, and now hold my Control key to rotate, and now I've got something that'll look more like cross hatching in my design. So we can zoom out a little bit and see the difference. This one is the diamond shaped line fill, and this is the horizontal vertical. I call this one cross hatching because it creates an X effect, almost like a little chevron, and this is more like squares. And whatever direction the lines go, that's the direction that your pen or engraving tool or embossing tool are going to travel as it's working with your project on your machine. So these are the remaining line fills that are commonly used. Now the next kind of fill that we have is an island fill. And with the island fill, I'm going to start with my, I'll get an extra square, Control Shift and drag, and I'm going to resize this down to, with the lock icon on to keep it a square, and I'm going to resize this down to 0.02 and click enter. So I have a very tiny little square down here. Next I'm going to go to Edit, Duplicate, Nested Duplicate. I'm going to start with 100 little squares with a gap of 0.02. That means it's keeping the distance between each larger square that I'm going to scale by width. So it's going to be perfect squares but duplicated 2/100ths of an inch larger each time. I've got this set to 100, so let's see what happens when I click Preview. Well, it looks like it's probably about the right size. You can do more or less if you want. Again, we can bog down our machine if we get it too big, but if it's not big enough to work with our desired size, then we need to add more. And once we have as many as we want, we'll click on Accept. Now you'll see here, if I go to Outline, that I have a nice design. I'm going to zoom in a little bit, and you can see that the design lines change their rotation. Top and bottom are horizontal, and the right and left are vertical, and this can give a very nice effect when you are engraving. I make sure that I put my design right in the middle to give balance and symmetry. Now I can use that same pattern. While it's selected, I'm going to go ahead and join it so they're all one design now. I hold a Control Shift and drag. I can rotate this design, click on it to find the rotation handles, hold the Control key and Shift 3 clicks. Now I have the same island fill, but now it's rotated to give diagonal lines. If I zoom in a little bit, you can see that we have diagonal lines rather than horizontal and vertical, and sometimes that's preferable for the project that we're doing. Now it's important that whichever design you choose, that all of the lines are joined in a single group, because we're going to use Boolean Join now with our desired pattern, and Boolean Join can only be used with two shapes. So let's say we want to use this island fill. I'm going to use Control C to copy, or you can go to Edit, Copy, and it'll be real slow because it's selecting every single one of those lines that we just made. And as soon as it's copied, we'll be able to go back to our previous page and grab our design. And one thing that could happen is that you may lose, your software may shut down if your resources are used too much. Now you notice on this page I have all these different fills. That's using up a lot of the computer memory, and if the software runs out of memory, the software just closes down. So we can wait, and sometimes it'll catch up. If you click on it before it's ready, then you may end up crashing again. So you've got to give it time to process. It really helps to have your undos limited. I have mine limited to 50 undos. That releases extra memory for processing. You go to Help and Advanced in order to set your number of undos. Other thing is to make sure you don't have things running in the background like your virus scanner or your backups that are taking a lot of software system resources. The other thing you can do is get rid of a lot of things that you don't need. If I go back to my other page, now I'm going to select that design that I have here. Now when I use a Boolean Join, I'm going to lose my original design, so rather than using my original, I'll use Control Shift and drag, and just drag the copy off, so that I can use it and consume it, but still have the original for another project. So I'm also going to click on my design that I want to take out of it, hold Control Shift and drag, so I'm using a copy. And what I want to do is put the center of that cross on the center of my design. I'll zoom in really close here, and I would normally use stack. That would put the little plus sign stacking on each other, but on this case the length and the width are a little different, so I want to line up the design and the cross with the position in my fill that is center. Now with holding the Shift key, I'm going to click on the fill, so I have both selected. So I'm working with two designs, and I'm going to click on Boolean Join. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8th icon from the right. And it does take a little bit of time to process. And I see a sample of A minus B, and since I put the design on top of the cross, it's giving me an idea of what it's going to look like. Now if I cancel that, I can see I moved it a little bit. Undo and select just the cross, because I want this center to be right around the center there. Now I'm going to hold a Shift and click again and do Boolean Join. And you'll see that these lines being diagonal, I would like them to be centered right at the center of the design. So if I like that, then I'll click on Apply. Now these are all the lines that will be drawn or engraved. I can go back to Fill, and it will look filled because I'm zoomed way in. If you look at it from a more realistic distance, you'll see that the design can appear to be filled once you draw it with a medium point pen or use an engraving tip or embossing tip. Now once I have this shape, I'll want to grab the shadow so I can show all layers, and I can grab not the cutting line, but I'll undo that, and I just want to select it and hold Control Shift and drag so that I select both the outline and the design and type S to stack them. So again, I'll go to outline, and when I'm ready to draw or engrave this design, I'll have the internal horizontal or diagonal lines, and I'll have the outline as well. And you may notice here the island fill with the diamond shaped island fill gives me diagonal lines one direction halfway through, and then the other direction the other halfway through. Same with this. You notice that the diagonals go upward on the right half to the right, and they go upward to the left on the other half. And then the lines around it give definition to the shape. So these would be the lines that are drawn. So I would select those two layers to be drawn. So if I select them both and send them to their own layer, I can call this engrave, so that both of these shapes would be engraved. The remaining line, the outside line, I would select, send it to its own layer, and call it cut. That way when I'm ready to cut the design, I'll send that to the bottom, move layer to the bottom, so that it doesn't obscure when I show all the color. So the technique is the same no matter which fill you use, and you can, whether you're using it with pens, embossing tool, or engraving tool, it's the same, and whether you use text or shape or both, whatever shape the lines are in, when you go to outline, that's the result you're going to get on your cutting mat. Again, if you're going to cut around this, you need to make sure that your tools are in alignment. Normally we would use an offset for cutting and no offset for pen engraving or embossing. So I click on Cut Project With, and I select, let's say I select my zing. You notice it takes a bit of time to prepare these paths, because there are many paths that need to be assembled and prepared to send to the cutter. So you're going to expect a little bit of rendering time here, and you're going to expect some time for it to be drawn on your cutter or engraved. There are many paths. If you're exporting as SVG to take into other software, you need to check the software that you will be importing to and make sure it can handle the number of nodes that you've got in your design. Now, once I have the zing up and it's not connected, I need to keep my offset set while I've got it set at the 0.35 millimeters for the cutting. But when I'm drawing or engraving, I click this no offset to 0, 0, so that I don't get any problems with shifting. There's a distance between the center of the point of the blade and the point of the pen. So when drawing or engraving or embossing, use no offset. When you're cutting, you use the offset. That helps keep them centered. I would also hide all layers. Hide all and show only the layer that you want to draw. That'll reduce rendering time. Also, you can click on Advanced at the bottom and look at, select what you want to look at, View Path Detail, and you'll see that in this design there are 3,448 nodes, which is not huge, but it still is quite a bit. Now if I wanted to cut this on my, or engrave on my force, I would select all and go to File, Export, Selection to SVG, and I would call this Happy Easter. But before I export, what I want to do is also have my cutting lines available. So I'll show all. Move that to the top. And I'd like to export that as well. I've moved it up here, that's why it's not showing down here. But I would like to have my design centered with the cut line stack type S. And now they're on different layers, and I've labeled them. I've engrave and cut. So now I want to select all of them and go to File, Export Selection to SVG, and we'll call this Filled Happy Easter Cross. Put my initials on it so I know that it's mine, and save. So then I can go to my force and upload my design. And then I'll be ready to coordinate my tools. If you have not done that, you'll need to align your particular tools. And I just updated, so I have to go back to my main screen when it finishes updating the machine. So that is the project here, and I'd love to see what you do with your fills. You can do all kinds of creative fills. I have made many different type fills besides just line and island fills by using different shapes. Again, multiplying them. We go into your shapes again, and rather than using engraving, when I've done the 01 fill, closer lines, I've labeled them 01, so I know that those are for finer tips. So you can make all different fills. But I've also made many fills for use with piercing tools and pergamano type designs. So if I go to your shapes and look at some of my fills, I've got chevron fills, so you could use a very close chevron pattern for engraving. You could fill with circles. We have crosshatch, diamonds, filling diamond shapes. So I have a diamond piercing here, which can be used as a fill for a piercing tool. Or there's hexagons, different shapes can be used for these fills. Here's a flower fill. Again, the choice is yours. I did island fills on these flower shapes. So whenever you create a new fill, here's a Moroccan lattice. It's not filled yet, but you could fill that Moroccan lattice with an island fill, or use one of your other fills to create a fill pattern. There's a different screen design. This is Tiny Designs. Rick Rack. There's a lot of different effects that you can get with this. So the goal here is to get the effect that you want, but once you know how to create your fills with line or duplicating the lines or doing duplicate nested to get the island type fill, you'll be able to do this in many different ways. Now if I have, let's say I have a circle, not in my shapes, but all categories. Double click, grab that circle, again I can start with a very small circle and duplicate it, nested duplicate, preview, and now I have even a different kind of fill, a little bit different from the original, the square that we got. I can join it, and that would be good for working with maybe some doilies, but you see that this has a 4-section kind of look to it, and the circle, when it has a fill, it has eight directions, kind of an octagonal direction about it, and you get some very interesting striations here when that's drawn. And if you take that original shape, do Control Shift and drag of your original and put it over there centered, we'll zoom in, try to line up the center of that cross with the center of the circle, and I'm going to send that shape to the top, get a little bit better alignment with the plus right in the middle of that. Then select a shift and click that shape and click on Boolean Join and apply. Now I have a circular design throughout my fill. So you see the rotated type effect on the text. So there are many different options here. So when I go back to my force, I can choose my file, which I put on my desktop. It's a K&K Force Cutter software. I need to import the design, so I did the filled Happy Easter. So I open it, and I already have my tools calibrated. It's reading the pattern, and I'm going to return to the main cutting screen. And you'll see first I have the cut design. I don't want to cut first, so I'm going to cut this layer later. And then I have the engrave layer. So for cut, I need to set the material for the depth for my material, which will be according to the material I'm using. And I always add the offset, my offset that I use for the blade, and make sure that I'm using the left tool. When I have the engraving layer selected, I'm going to click on yes, I want to do this layer, but I'm going to use the right tool. I'm going to use my engraving tool with the 0 blade offset and the pressure that I need for the particular material that I'm engraving. If I'm using my pen, I might want to set it 80 or 100. If I'm using an engraving tool, it won't take that much, but I always do a test cut for the material and the tool that I'm using. So then when I'm ready, I'll prepare this job to cut. I'm not really ready, but that's a simple process that we use for use with the force and engraving or with the pen. So I hope this was helpful for you. You're welcome to post questions and I will answer them as time allows. So thank you for watching. Bye.